J.K. Rowling introduced both Harry and her readers to a magical world in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Not only does Harry find out he's a wizard, but a famous one at that. He's renowned as the miraculous survivor of a brutal attack by the evil Lord Voldemort, who murdered his parents. Through his adventures at Hogwarts, Harry begins to find out the mysteries of his past.
The orphan is an excellent protagonist for any story because they're free and yet they're bereft. They're bereft of what gives a child most of the sense of who he or she is and where they come from and where they belong. So they're cut adrift in some strange way. They have this great need, because we all need to know where we've come from and we need to find where we will eventually belong.
Difficult, very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you?
Not Slytherin. Not Slytherin.
Not Slytherin, eh?
When he first arrives at school, he's totally unsure. He has the feelings we all have, as adults as well, when you enter a new place and you don't know what's going on, but greatly exaggerated, obviously, by the fact that he is set apart, even there, by his fame and his ancestry. And this curious quirk that meant that he survived this, what should have been a fatal attack. He's every boy, but with a twist.
J.K. Rowling's mixture of the everyday and the magical, the matter-of-fact and the mystical, permeates her books.
You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making, he began. He spoke in barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. Like Professor McGonagall, Snape had the gift of keeping a class silent without effort. As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, ensnaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stop a death.
I don't believe in witchcraft, though I've lost count of the number of times I've been told I'm a practicing witch. 95% at least of the magic in the books is entirely invented by me. And I've used things from folklore and I've used bits of what people used to believe worked magically just to add a certain flavour, but I've always twisted them to suit my own ends. I mean, I've taken liberties with folklore to suit my plot. Witches and wizards are a huge part of children's literature. It'll never go away. I don't think it'll ever, ever, ever go away. 100 years, 200 years' time, there'll be another kind of wizard story.
In 1997, J.K. Rowling had moved on to the second book in the series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Book 1 was doing well, but nowhere near its popularity today. J.K. Rowling was still making her living as a teacher. Then something happened that would change her world forever. In 1997, Harry Potter cast a spell on America. American publishers got caught up in a bidding war for the book.
My boss would say, okay, do you love it? I'd say, yes, I love it. Okay, stay in the auction. Do you love it this many dollars? Yeah. I kept saying yes. I just was getting more and more nervous because at the end of the day, this is more money than I had ever paid any author as an advance, let alone an advance for a first novel. It was unprecedented. She said, do you love it $105,000? And I said, yes. She said, well, go ahead and make that offer, and that was it.
The deal with Scholastic meant that at last J.K. Rowling could fulfill her lifelong ambition to become a full-time writer. J.K. Rowling's memories of her childhood have profoundly influenced her writing. She was born in 1965 in Chipping Sodbury and grew up near Bristol with her parents, Anne and Peter, and her younger sister, Di. She admits to being bookish and bossy as a child, not unlike one of Harry's best friends.
Wingardium Leviosa. Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. You do it then if you're so clever.
When I started to write Hermione, when I actually got hold of a pen, she came incredibly easily. Largely because she's me.
Go on. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa.
I was swotty, and I had that, sense of insecurity underneath, trying to compensate for that by getting everything right all the time. And like Hermione, I projected a false confidence, which I know was very irritating to people at times, but underneath it all, I felt completely and utterly inadequate, which is why I completely understand Hermione.
Even as a very young child, J.K. Rowling loved to write, completing her first book at the age of 6.
The first finished book I did was a book called Rabbit, about a rabbit called Rabbit, thereby revealing the imaginative approach to names that has stood me in such good stead ever since. And I wrote the Rabbit stories for ages, to the point where a series of books about Rabbit, which were very dull, illustrated by the author. The one book I could say that specifically influenced my work was The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Coolidge. She always listed the exact food they were eating. Wherever you were in the book, whenever they had a meal, you knew exactly what was in the sandwiches. And I just remember finding that so satisfying as a child.
There were shelves upon shelves of the most succulent-looking sweets imaginable. Creamy chunks of nougat, shimmering pink squares of coconut ice, fat, honey-coloured toffees, hundreds of different kinds of chocolate in neat rows. There was a large barrel of every flavour beans and another of fizzing whizbees, the levitating sherbet balls that Ron had mentioned.
As I moved into my teens, I was into very dramatic, gritty realism, entirely influenced by Barry Hines and Kes. Unfortunately, I didn't live in a northern town. My urban landscape wasn't very developed because I lived in Chepstow, in the middle of a lot of fields, and it's quite hard to be a disaffected urban youth in the middle of a muddy field. So this is a cottage, obviously, where I lived from the age of 9. My bedroom's furthest on the right, and I spent an awful lot of time in that bedroom writing. I have very happy memories of this place. It's quite emotional being back here, actually, because I've only once been, because my dad left this house shortly after my mother died. So I've only once been back here since my mum died. I remember hanging out of my bedroom window, smoking behind the curtains late at night. My father will not be happy to hear that. I wasn't very clever about that either, because I used to leave the cigarette ends were, below the window. I mean, oh yeah, someone from the pub, Dad's been throwing them into the garden again.